believe that we are live, so I'm going to bring us to order at this time. Good evening. I call this March 9th, 2021 meeting of the Morrisville Town Council to order. This meeting is being streamed on the Town of Morrisville Facebook page and the Town of Morrisville website. On March 11th, a video of this meeting will be uploaded to www.townofmorrisville.org/government/live-video. A link to this page will also be placed on the Town of Morrisville social media pages. To ensure the safety of town residents, staff, and the Town Council, while following guidelines related to public meetings, this meeting is being facilitated electronically via Teams meeting. All council members will be able to fully participate in this evening's work. Please visit www.townofmorrisville.org for updates regarding future Town Council meetings, or feel free to email Town Clerk at townofmorrisville.org with any questions. Our adopted mission statement is connecting our diverse community to an enhanced quality of life through innovative programs and services. Our adopted values are dedication, integrity, courtesy, and innovation. And our vision statement is to create a sustainable and thriving community that celebrates diversity and inclusion while enhancing the well-being of the people that live, work, and play in Morrisville. So those comprise the purpose of tonight's meeting and the reason for being here. Thank you for joining us. Eric Smith, our town clerk, will conduct a roll call of all council members, please.
Mayor Cawley.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Fender.
Present.
Councilmember Garamella.
Present.
Councilmember Rao.
Present.
Councilmember Robati.
Present.
Councilmember Scroggins Johnson.
Present.
All councilors present.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion and second to invoke Rule 19 at this time? I'd like to recognize Councilmember Robati, please.
I make a motion that we invoke Rule 19.
Thank you. Would anyone like to second that? I would like to recognize Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, please.
I would like to second that motion.
Thank you. Town Clerk Smith will conduct a roll call vote.
Councilmember Robati.
Oh, I'm sorry. Aye.
Councilmember Scroggins Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rao.
Aye.
Councilmember Garamella.
Aye.
Councilmember Fender.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Cawley.
Aye.
The motion to invoke Rule 19 passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Before we adopt tonight's agenda, Town Council policy is to review and ensure there are no conflicts of interest or appearance of conflict of interest with any items on the agenda. Do any council members have any such conflicts they would like to share at this time? Okay, seeing none, I recognize Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. I recognize Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, please.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Town Clerk Smith will conduct a roll call vote to adopt tonight's agenda.
Councilmember Fender.
Aye.
Councilmember Garamella.
Aye.
Councilmember Rao.
Aye.
Councilmember Scroggins Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Robati.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Cawley.
Aye.
The motion to adopt the regular agenda passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We have two presentations tonight, a proclamation recognizing Women in Public Office Day and a proclamation recognizing Women's History Month. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Fender for our first proclamation, please.
Okay, this is a proclamation celebrating Women in Public Office Day. Whereas the month of March is Women's History Month and celebrates the significant contributions women of all races, ethnicities, and backgrounds have made to the world, And whereas women play a critical role in the vitality and diversity of our communities and are essential to ensuring the town of Morrisville is well represented. And whereas while the 20th century was a pivotal time of growth for women entering politics, women remain underrepresented in male-dominated fields, and thus providing opportunities to support women in public office is imperative. And whereas recognizing women in public office will bring awareness to the fundamental necessity of their work and will inspire other young people to serve their communities. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Morrisville does hereby proclaim March 19th, 2021 as Women in Public Office Day and call upon the people of Morrisville to unite as we support the success of women in public office and observe every March 19th with appropriate activities, events, and programs. Adopted this day, the 9th of March, 2021.
Now I am unmuted. Thank you very much. For our second proclamation, I'd like to recognize Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, this proclamation is declaring March as Women's History Month. Whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, and whereas women have played and continue to play a critical economic, cultural, and social role in every sphere of life of the nation by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside of the home, and whereas women have played a unique role throughout the history of the nation by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation, and whereas women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation, and whereas women have served our country courageously in the military, and whereas despite these contributions, the role of American women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of American history. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Morrisville does hereby proclaim March as Women's History Month in Morrisville and urges all citizens to celebrate with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. We also invite all citizens to visit womenshistorymonth.gov to learn more about the generations of women who have left enduring imprints on our history. And it's adopted this 9th day of March, 2021.
Yep, did it again. We are now at item 6, public address. Town Clerk Smith will now read any public address comments received.
There were no comments received for public address.
Thank you very much. We are now at item 7. There are 2 action items on tonight's agenda. A proposed amendment of the zoning map for 3109 and 703 Slater Road, and a proposed amendment of the land use plan and zoning map for 0 Slater Road. Emily Langston, Planner 2, will present the first item. Ms. Langston.
Thank you, Mayor. Town Council was briefed on this rezoning for 3109 and 703 Slater Road on February 9th. A public hearing was held on the request on February 23rd. No public comments were received on the request at that time or in the 24 hours following when the meeting remained open. The only change that has been made since the last time I presented this item was to the consistency statement, which has been changed to reflect the newly adopted 2021 future land use plan rather than the 2009 future land use plan, which was previously referenced before the new one was adopted. I do not have any further updates on this item at this time, but I am happy to answer any questions from council if you have any.
Okay, does anyone have any questions before we begin discussion? Okay, seeing no question, does anyone want to share any? Thanks. Yes, I recognize Councilmember Rabati, please.
Hi. Thank you, Emily. Has there been any modification in the number of apartments planned for this development in response to both Councilmember Fender's and my request of the developer?
This rezoning is just for an office building. So the one that you're going to hear right after me is the one that's for an office building and also the multifamily development. But this one is just office and a little bit further up Slater Road at 3109 and 703.
Okay, sorry about that. I was confused. Thank you, Emily.
So I would just comment that I believe that this is an appropriate use for this space at this time. Does anyone else like to make any comments before we entertain a motion? Okay, I would entertain a motion on this item. I'd like to recognize Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, please.
Okay, Emily, would you like me to, you want me to read out the whole resolution?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. Make a motion to adopt Resolution 2021-22-0 of the Morrisville Town Council pertaining to the adoption of a plan consistency review statement for a proposed zoning map amendment for 3109 and 703 Slater Road. Property located along the south side of Slater Road and east of the intersection of Slater Road and Suburban Road to the Conditional Office Institutional District, Res. 0000455-2020. Morrisville Town Council regular meeting. You want me to read this part too? No. We're good. I can stop right there, right?
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, if you would also just, there's a motion script, I think, pulled up that you should be able to see that just references the statement of consistency with the comprehensive plan, and just that last piece there needs to be included as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. Based on the following, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan and is in the public interest because A, the newly adopted 2021 future land use plan designates the subject parcels for office use.
Okay, does that meet the needs of the motion, Ms. Langston?
Yes, it does, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd entertain a second on that motion. And you don't have to read the whole thing again. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Rao, please.
I second that motion.
Thank you very much. Town Clerk Smith will conduct a roll call vote on that motion, please.
Councilmember Fender,
Aye.
Councilmember Garamella,
Aye.
Councilmember Rao,
Aye.
Councilmember Robati,
Aye.
Councilmember Scroggins Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Colley.
Aye.
The motion to approve Resolution 2020-022-0 passes unanimously.
And now we need a motion on the ordinance, please. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Rabati, please.
I hereby make a motion that the Town Council approve Ordinance 2021-22-0, approving a zoning map amendment for 3109 and 703 Slater Road, property located along the south side of Slater Road and east of the intersection of Slater Road and Suburban Road to the Conditional Office Institutional District, REZ 0000455-2020.
Thank you very much. Looking for a second in chat. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Fender, please.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Town Clerk Smith, if you could conduct a roll call vote on that motion, please.
Councilmember Scroggins Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Robati,
Aye.
Councilmember Rao,
Aye.
Councilmember Garamella,
Aye.
Councilmember Fender,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Cawley.
Aye.
The motion to approve ordinance 2021-022-0 passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Langston. Any last thoughts?
Nothing else for me, Mayor. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are now on item 7B. Elliott Ward, Planner 2, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor Cawley, Council. Press control.
If Mr. Ward is speaking, I can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
It's a little faint.
It's a little better.
Is that better?
Much better, sir. Thank you.
Jeannie, if you could.
Do you want the presentation?
Just scroll down the item if you would. Thank you. While Jeannie's scrolling, so like the last item, this item was briefed on the 9th. Public hearing was held on February 23rd. I do have a few updates, and then I will pass it over to Neil Ghosh, representing the applicant, and they'll give an additional brief presentation. Councilmember Rabati, to your question, they asked previously, the applicant, at the last meeting, there was discussion of reducing the 200 from 230 to 207. They've actually reduced it to 199 from 230, maximum number of units. They also have agreed to remove private recreation facility outdoor from both the BAC and the HDR on the prohibited uses, which was also discussed at the previous meeting. Those are the two confirmed updated changes to the conditions from the applicant. There will be potentially discussion from the applicant on additional conditions. Once it's all set in place, we will update the attachment 2 as well as the ordinance to reflect all the correct conditions in place. One other note, I did want to mention that I made a calculating error when originally estimating the total number of school students. I think the original estimation was 50 for the 230. For the reduced 199 units, it would actually be 69 total students for the correct estimation. There were also questions regarding what would be the estimation for the MDR zoning. The maximum number of townhomes that would be able to fit on that acreage would be 91. An estimated total for the 91 townhomes would be 37 students. I did want to note that these Wake County estimates are solely based on total number of units and not the type of home that's being looked at. But those were the only updates I had. Like I said, Neil Ghosh will be representing the applicant, and he wanted to add a few comments as well.
Great. Mr. Ghosh, please, your name, address, and your role.
Certainly, and good evening, Mayor Cowley, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, and members of Town Council. I am Neil Ghosh with the Morningstar Law Group at 112 West Main Street in Durham, and I'm representing Dominion Partners on this project tonight. Mr. Ward has done a great job summarizing some of the changes which have been made to the plan as a result of the feedback we have gotten throughout the public hearing process. But as he alluded, we have a few more changes. And I hope you all will be able to recognize that this developer has made an earnest attempt to reshape this project based on a multitude of feedback we have been given. At the last hearing, you may recall that we reduced the unit count from 230 to 207. We were asked whether we could reduce it even further, and I promised you we would look at it. We did, and we are trimming down the project as much as we were able to, and have reduced the maximum unit count to 199. Additionally, whether in relation to this project specifically or general land planning in Morrisville, we heard a very clear concern about the school system. While we believe the estimated number of students this project would generate is overstated in the staff report, we wanted to do something to give you all a little more comfort about the number of students you might expect from this community. Therefore, we are adding a condition which would limit the number of units with more than one bedroom to no more than 50%. The target market for this community is not young families, but young professionals. Finally, though it has not been brought up at the public hearing specific to this project, Dominion wants to do its part to address affordability because Dominion is not just some developer. They live here. They are part of the community, and they recognize that the market is pressuring the town's affordability. As Mayor Cowley has recognized for years, you cannot fight against the market, so you have to be intentional about having affordable and workforce housing. Tonight, Dominion is prepared to do exactly that. Borrowing a page from Wood Partners project, Dominion is committing to providing, as part of the project, 15 workforce housing units affordable at the 80% AMI level as set forth by HUD for a period of 15 years. Again, though affordability has not been part of the feedback we have received during the public hearings for this project, Dominion has paid attention to the discussions going on within the town. During the recent council retreat, every council member agreed on the importance of having a strategy for continued housing affordability. Dominion is committing to being a part of the solution. Every step of the way, Dominion has taken the feedback it has gotten in stride and improved the project. And you all should be proud of that because the town's process has shaped this project for the better. But now is the time to go. This is a strong project, and this is as strong a project as we are able to put together. And it's a very strong project indeed. A lot of the focus has been on the multifamily aspect of this project, but we cannot forget the 137,000 square feet of grade A office space being proposed with this project. The two uses play off one another and each contributes to the other's success. We all have seen how the mixed-use area of North Hills has changed that area from a parking lot with a Sears to a highly desirable destination for employers and residents alike. This project offers grade A office space in close proximity to affordable, well-programmed multifamily living, and that is hard to beat. Now, we understand that there are legitimate concerns about multifamily in Morrisville, but even this council, just 2 weeks ago, agreed that the appropriate designation for the southern portion of this site is high-density residential. Given that, I think the apartments proposed here do a lot to address the concerns Morrisville residents have shared about multifamily in general. We have increased our street yard buffer 25% to provide a more robust streetscape. We have reduced our overall unit count and limited the number of two-bedroom apartments to minimize the potential impacts of the school system. This project features a host of infrastructure improvements, including a payment to partially fund a traffic signal that was not even recommended for this project. And the project commits to providing 15 workforce housing unit. Now, if you choose to, you can focus on the negatives of this project. That is your prerogative. But you cannot deny that Dominion has put forth a very strong project that includes commitments and assurances to mitigate against every perceived negative impact that has been discussed. Yes, the vote tonight is about the project, but on some level, this vote really is about whether you are willing to take action to address pressing issues or if you are content to just talk about it instead. Dominion is ready to take action. The question is, are you? Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ward.
Yes, so that was all the updates I had as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do any council members have any comments or questions for staff or Mr. Ghosh? I recognize Councilmember Rao.
I want to thank, first of all, the staff and the council for truly demonstrating what I believe is collaborative partnership with developers, which is critically essential to the future of Morrisville and addressing the infrastructure challenges we have. And I know, and I've spoken to many citizens even before tonight about the concern of schools with multifamily. And so I just want to thank everyone for this process, because I think when I make a decision, I look at what I'm getting versus what I'm not getting. So no action or not voting for this would eliminate the ability of having $2.5 million worth of investment in infrastructure, another $500,000 for parks. And in addition, the recent condition of the affordable housing, I think, is a workforce housing is very attractive to be able to demonstrate through action that when we do approve housing, we're going to do everything we can to have workforce housing. And of course, the reduction in the number of units in terms of single bedroom. It's not going to solve the problem of eliminating all the kids that come to school, but I think it does show that we are listening to the citizens to do what we can to amend our development partnerships and at the same time invest in infrastructure. The final thing I'll say, I don't really have any questions, is that, I've been doing some research recently on going office park by office park and looking at all the jobs that are here now and then the new ones that are coming in. So when it's all said and done, we have about 55,000 plus that work in Morrisville on any given day. And it could be, Cisco 5,000, Cree 2,500, Oracle 500, Microsoft. A lot of them are in Perimeter Park or Keystone Park. And I think that having this kind of housing that's attracting a younger professional demographic is good, because not only will they work here, but we can offer them a place to live, and then they can recreate in our parks and they can do the live, work, and play. Because if we don't offer that, they're coming into work and then they're leaving. And so I just feel like it sort of comes together in the right place of Morrisville. This kind of development makes sense. But what I'm hearing from the citizens is not close to the residential, those kinds of things we want. But I want to thank the applicant Dominion for working with us, and staff, and I may have other questions, but just wanted to make those comments for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fender, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Elliot and Dominion, for presenting this tonight. I have a couple of questions and a couple of comments. I'm just wondering, did Dominion Realty consider building any sort of retail on the southern parcel?
I'll field that question. I assume it was addressed to me, if that's sure. All right. Sure. So, no, retail wasn't part of the consideration throughout the whole process. The previous future land use map and the current land use map show this for residential. So retail was never really on the radar for this southern portion at all.
Well, but you had office on the other side. Did you consider office on the office space or lab space on the southern side?
No, again, the land use plan, both the previous and the one you all adopted 2 weeks ago, showed this area for residential, and that's what we were proposing. On the northern side where the office is proposed, that was slated on both versions for non-residential, including office. And that's exactly what we've gone with. So throughout the whole process, the project which we have put forward is consistent with the future land use map, particularly the one that was recently adopted.
Where does Mr. Carlino live?
I believe he is on and could field that question if he.
What town does he live?
I live in Raleigh.
So who lives in Morrisville that's part of the community?
So part of the community, the Morrisville community, includes the Shiloh Crossings neighborhood, which was built and developed by Wood Partners. Wood Partners continues to own and manage that property. They are very much a part of the Morrisville community and hope to continue to be in the future.
How many apartments are in that apartment complex?
Chris, do you want to field that question?
Yeah, Shiloh Crossing is 318 units.
And that's fairly new, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. We just received our final TCO in the last 2 weeks on that project.
So your argument for being part of the community is that you've already built 318 apartments in Morrisville?
Councilwoman Fender, to be fair, it's not an argument, it's a fact. And frankly, Dominion is part of the Morrisville community, and they are a committed partner of Morrisville. I think this case demonstrates very clearly that they want to make Morrisville a better place to live, a more affordable place to live, and they want to continue to provide grade A office space to attract high quality employers to the area. I am somewhat baffled and miffed by your tone, which seems to suggest that Dominion Partners somehow is not part of the Morrisville community. Frankly, they are a huge part of the community, and I'm not sure why you would suggest otherwise.
Well, because I wonder if the members of Dominion Realty would have the same thoughts as building an additional 200 apartments on top of the 318 if they lived here and their children went to school here. You can be missed as much as you want. However, the rest of us do live here and have our kids go to school here. And I will say that we're not exactly, there's not some huge chasm here for apartments. We already have in the pipeline 250 apartments being built at Alta Morrisville behind CVS. We have another 300 units being built or already built at Brainbridge, which continues to be a thorn in my side. And then we have another 263 apartments being built at Trailside. And they had the audacity to name their apartments after the greenway that they dug up and built a parking lot through. So now our greenway goes through a parking lot. So, you made a case that you listened to the public comments, but you didn't, because there is an issue in our community with crowded schools. All our schools are capped, and we have 1,500 additional units in the pipeline right now, and this would be an additional 200. Just the other apartments that we have in the pipeline will add, where did that go? Over 298 students to our already overcrowded schools. So I have a very severe concern and a very real concern of adding even more apartments into the system. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I appreciate the comments. It does leave me scratching my head, because I would wonder, why then did you vote in favor of the land use plan 2 weeks ago, which designated the southern portion of the site for high density residential? However, I appreciate your comments and I understand your position. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I would like to thank the applicant for listening to our council discussions during the retreat and in previous meetings where we were considering your project. It's important that not only do you understand our community, but you hear us as we're considering your project and how it can fit in to the fabric of our town. I do appreciate reducing the number of total units from 207 to 199, I believe, and the workforce housing of 15 units equates to about 7.5% of the project, and that's within the realm of what we have seen in some of our prior projects as it relates to workforce housing. My question or comment is, how does that condition get written up? Because tonight we first heard of it and it's intriguing, but the details of that condition, or the way that it's written, and then the way that the number of bedrooms that you've reduced from 2 to 1 and 50%, all of that needs to have language around it. Is it possible, or it doesn't seem like it's really possible to vote tonight without seeing those conditions in writing? There might be a need to push this out a couple weeks so that we can all review and really understand what the conditions are. So I do thank you for listening, but I also want to see more information in writing and to look at that as a whole project. So thank you.
And thank you for that. And I can certainly appreciate that. I will let you know that the workforce housing commitment, the language will be modeled exactly off of one that this council has approved previously on the Alta project behind CVS that Councilwoman Fender referred to earlier. So it'd be the exact same language, except that one had 20 units for a project that had roughly 25% more multifamily units. And this one would have 15 units. So same exact condition, just 15 instead of 20. The condition about bedrooms, it would just be a limitation that no more than 50% of the units would be allowed to have more than one bedroom.
And Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, I appreciate that. I was going to try and jump in at some point and just mention that we will have updated language specifics in the conditions, and if the vote did need to get pushed out, that's definitely a possibility. Obviously, if you want to review wording specifically prior to actually voting, that's understandable. But we should have that updated very soon.
Thank you.
If I may, just to maybe close off that little tangent, would you be comfortable, Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, or are we going to circle back and see if there's a desire to postpone this vote?
I think let's let everybody weigh in, and then maybe we can discuss that as a round two, if that's okay.
Of course. I just want to check on that.
I appreciate that.
You bet. At this time, I'd like to make my comment, please. So I'd just like to come right out of the gate and say that I vote no to the entire request, as the applicant has chosen to bundle what I see as two separate requests into one. As this is a legislative action, not an administrative one, I feel it is incumbent upon me to vote the value of preserving our current quality of life. I drove over to the site earlier today, and this office space right next to a line in SolarWinds I feel is very appropriate. I am committed, however, to scrutinize each and every application for upzoning per the desire of our residents, especially those recently given land use designations of more density. I think that we made it very clear that a land use designation does not guarantee an upzoning, plain and simple. Instead of more multifamily development outside of our sub-area vision, I hope we will concentrate our efforts and leverage partnerships and resources on investing in our infrastructure needs before approving projects such as this one, which does not, in my opinion, provide enough benefits to bring us closer to an enhanced quality of life, but actually degrades the quality of life of our current residents. Please note our vision for the sub-areas as a potential location for high-density development, such as what is being proposed here. This project would be great in a sub-area, especially the workforce commitments, which I appreciate very much. So thank you very much, Mr. Ghosh, for those. We will get the investments for infrastructure when this parcel is eventually developed. I don't feel that there's any rush. Like I said, I do appreciate the office. I think that would be a great addition to the town. But at this time, the multifamily outside of the sub-areas, I do not support. At this time, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Garamella.
Yeah. Hey, Neil, or basically Elliot. Last week, when we had the retreat, we had a lot of discussion around, affordable housing and workforce housing. Can the staff go back, or Neil, you guys can go back and say, by giving this 15 units and also the altar, right, how much money, if town had to pay the same amount, how much would that be? Because we talked about, financing the units. So I want to get a real dollar amount because for me, I see a win-win of getting affordable housing because we still are away from having our own policy, and the fact that Alta did it and these guys are also doing it, it gets exactly what we talked in last week, getting people from town of Morrisville and workforce housing. It's typical and ideal because everyone doesn't have a high-paying salary. So I would ask, the staff can go back and let us know all, the dollar amount that this brings as an overall project.
Satish, Councilmember Garamella, if I could address that, I think it's very hard to put a dollar amount on the value of the affordable housing commitment, and I'll explain. Obviously, it means a lot more than just the money involved in it. But the town,
No. I'm saying if town had to get 15 affordable units,
Right. I'm getting
there.
I'm getting there. My point is that the affordability of 15 units within a regular market rate apartment complex, there are many more benefits other than just the fact that 15 people can live there at an affordable rate. But it's hard to put the dollar amount on that figure because this project underwrites and is able to underwrite those 15 units on the basis of the rest of the units coming into existence. That having been said, on the 4% non-competitive low-income housing tax credit deals that I've worked on, I'm using that as a measuring stick, just so you know. It has often been the case that municipalities would provide about $40,000 per unit for the gap funding that the affordable housing developers on a 4% LIHTC deal would need. That's a rough number. By no means does that mean you could build an affordable housing unit for $40,000. But if the town were subsidizing this, the expected subsidy on a 4% tax credit deal right now, on the projects I've worked on recently, is about $40,000 per unit.
Thank you, Neil. And Councilmember Garamella, we can also, staff can do additional research and look into that for you as well.
Who's that? the extent of your questions and comments, Councilmember Garamella?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Rabati, please.
To Mr. Grosh's earlier point about recently having voted for the land use plan, I also voted recently for the land use plan. During all of the many hours that we talked about the land use plan, the one thing that was made clear to us and then was in turn made clear by us to the citizens was that the approval of this land use plan did not mean that there would be immediate upzonings. That's a promise that we made to our community that I take very seriously. And I also will not be voting for an additional 100 apartments in Morrisville when we have so many already coming in, and we are still, in spite of all the progress we've made, woefully behind on road improvements, and we don't have elementary schools on the horizon for the kids that we have now. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, please.
So I too want to thank the applicant for the many changes that they've made based on the concerns they've heard from all the council members. And I want to thank you for, we talked about the transportation improvements that will be included as a condition, the increased buffer, of course now the condition of only or 50% of the units will be one bedrooms. So that will, although we can't guarantee, would dictate who lives in a unit. It would give us a greater comfort level of you won't find a typical family in a one-bedroom apartment. So so I appreciate the limiting even of the one-bedroom units, and then limiting the number of units on the overall project. I appreciate also the fact, and of course you have to do this, it's part of our ordinance, the huge parkland payment in lieu that will be dedicated per unit. So that will help with our parkland amenities across town, and yet you all are putting amenities on site for your future residents. So I really do appreciate all that. I will tell you that clearly the infrastructure is a big issue, and we all are concerned about that. And of course, the whole idea of schools falls into infrastructure. And so I went out there. I also went out there and drove around quite a bit on a number of days to really look. This is a unique part of town, and there is an apartment complex out there now that I think, if I'm remembering correctly, is called Cortland Perimeter Park. And I drove out there a couple of times at various different times of the day, and it was striking to me, and it was obvious to me that there were not a lot of children living in this particular apartment complex, which for those that don't know, it's on Slater and Carrington Mill, which is right in this vicinity. When I was out there, I only found, and of course this is not scientific study. This is nothing. This, just my experience being out there. I only saw the possibility of 2 families that lived out there. There was no indication of toys and children's bicycles and all that. And yet I live, and most of you know this, I live off Morrisville Parkway. And across the street from me are several apartment complexes that were already existing when I moved here. Huntington is one, and Cross Timber is the other. When you drive through, and I don't need to drive through because I can see, but when you drive through those apartment complexes, it is evident the number of families and the number of children that live in those apartments. So while we see all these numbers and we see these calculations of what might be, what also weighs on me is the actual location of this proposed apartment complex, where it is, I just don't think it's going to be. We're going to see a lot of families out there. So anyhow, so that was one thing that's been weighing on me. But I really appreciate this notion of helping with our affordable housing concerns and challenges. I think if we're going to really commit as a council to addressing workforce housing, affordable housing, then we need partners to help us. I do not think as a council we're going to be able to solve the problem ourselves. And when during retreat I made the comment of well, actually, I think it was Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson that called it "we're our own worst enemy," because she summed it up better than I did. But our stringent regulations and ordinances lead to a higher priced product, which I'm part of that problem too, because I talk about how we want a high quality products here in town. And then we turn around and try to solve this affordability issue. And I don't think we can do it alone, quite frankly. We need partners to help us. So I really appreciate that this applicant has stepped up and offered to help us in those efforts. And I too am like Councilmember Garamella, would like to know the value of that. There is a value associated. That would be nice to and I realize that's hard to estimate, but an estimate would be nice. And then I'm with Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson always. I always say the devil's in the details. The actual wording of this condition is important, but I appreciate all the changes that are being made, all the conditions that are being added, and I you've heard me say this again. I'm going to say it. I'm probably going to say it a lot over time. These rezonings should be more difficult. These rezonings should take into account all these challenges that we're facing here in town. And when an applicant can help us address these challenges, that means a lot to me, and that gives me a greater comfort level with what we're moving forward with. And this is what I would expect of all rezonings, that they include conditions that are meaningful and address the impacts of the development. So those are the end of my comments right now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Everyone on council has had an opportunity to share their thoughts on this, so we're going to go ahead and do round two for anyone who wishes to revisit. I'll recognize Councilmember Rao, please.
Well, first of all, if this had just been apartments with no investments that have been worked on with the applicant, then I would vote no. But I view, just for the public listening, a vote no for the $950,000 of infrastructure improvements. I mean, Mayor Colley said, well, let's wait for the improvements to come. Why would I wait for someone that's going to invest over about $1 million for sidewalks, multi-use path, extension of the public water line? That's money that we're getting in for the town now, plus the $500,000 for the parks investments, plus workforce housing. You know, it's not enough to just have an affordable housing policy on paper. Why don't we act and do something? And we have an opportunity to act on that. And so I just want to be clear that I agree with my colleagues about not packing Morrisville with too many apartments. But in this case, I think efforts have been made to do this in a place near where people are working. I don't think an apartment like this would be, I mean, moving forward, I've even told citizens that anything near a residential area, that's why, you know, we worked together on Kid Creek to move some of those parcels back to low density residential. And we went by parcel, some voted low, some voted medium. And then the final point I'll make is, you know, today some of us attended the TCC event, and I asked John Kane about his innovation district, and I said, you know, $1.5 billion, and he's saying that Raleigh's the capital for technology and life sciences. Well, I told him I respectfully disagree. I think Morrisville is, and I asked him, what would you do? Could you do one in Morrisville, as facetiously? And he goes, yeah, I'd like to come out there. And I'd like to show someone like that, you know what, we want to build that kind of environment so we can get $1 billion or $2 billion of an innovation district invested in Morrisville, whether it could be in the McCrimmon sub-area. So I think that we're sending a message. If we, after all of this work, if we vote no, I believe we're voting no for $2.5 million investment. We're voting no on affordable housing, and we're doing nothing. And we're losing the control that we have to bring in, especially after a pandemic, cash that we need. $2.5 million, we can do a lot with that money. Thank you.
Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what infrastructure means to me. And I think we've all used this term, but we might still have some different perspectives on what the infrastructure is as the top priority and all of that. So infrastructure to me is, of course, schools, but it's also roads and our road connectivity. And in this project, we have offices and we have residences. And I believe we heard last time we were briefed on this item that the intense impact on our roadways is more severe by office than residential. Well, that seems kind of counterintuitive, but that's what the studies have said. So with a project that has both office and residential is actually mitigating some of that traffic impact. The project does have monies that will be put towards improvements in the road network, such as a traffic signal and other walkability factors. That does improve on the road network and connectivity, which is one of our top goals in the town. And we also have the parks payment in lieu, which helps with the entire Morrisville community in improving our parks system. And affordability with some of the units is very helpful as well. I'm not prepared to take any vote on this tonight. I would like more information in the conditions, and but I think we need to recognize that it's not just the schools that they've tried to mitigate through some of their balancing of the buildings and the types of models that are being offered, but it's also with our road network, which is a very significant priority for all of the town. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Fender, please.
Yeah, I have a comment. I don't disagree that the offer of workforce housing is not enticing, because it is. My vision for this area, I think this area can still be developed, but why does it always have to be apartments? We talk about work, live, and play, but it seems like the only two that get built in Morrisville is work and live. And I would like to see more development put on play. As I have repeated multiple times, Morrisville has more than our fair share of apartments. It seems like everyone else that doesn't live here comes to Morrisville and builds offices and apartments. My vision for this area would be restaurants and coffee shops, or if we really wanted an innovative type of community, we could have lab space. We could have a co-working environment there. And I actually talked to Steve Rao about this Friday. I talked to Steve Rao about this idea on Friday and shared my vision for this area with him. In addition, especially where this parcel of land is, so close to Perimeter Park, where I actually used to work a few years back. As a working mom, one of the things that I always looked for close to where I worked was a preschool. So, why not help out working parents and put a preschool in this location? I early on, about in the first year after my son was born, his preschool was a block down the road from where I worked, and I was able to go at lunchtime and go visit with him. And that's one of the major benefits that people talk about for working at SAS, that they have a Montessori preschool there in addition to another preschool. So if you want to, help our area and our community in its work, live, and play, focus more on the play and add either retail, restaurants, co-working environment, a preschool. There are a plethora of other choices that are available to you other than apartments. So I challenge you to consider some of those other choices that you have. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Rabati, please.
Yeah, we talked on retreat about how we were going to start calling this out when it happened. And I just wanted to remark that I am offended by a fellow council member being schooled about her tone by an applicant. That does not sit well with me, and I do not think that that is the kind of statement that we should tolerate. Thank you.
Thank you. My comment is I pretty much echo what we've heard from Councilmember Fender. We've done our share. I would love to see a project like this in one of our sub areas, which is the vision that we're seeking for live, work, play in the sub areas. It's unfortunate that the developer is not taking that path at this time. I've heard from a couple of council members that they would like to not vote. Well, from one for sure. I wasn't positive about Councilmember Garamello wanting to delay the vote. So at this time, I want to, if there's no other comments, I'd like to just do a quick round to see if anyone has, I guess the easiest way to do it is we are planning on voting. So if you'd like to delay the vote, please speak up in chat now. And if we have 4 people who want to delay the vote, we will. Otherwise, in respect for everyone's time, we'll go ahead and do that. So I'll recognize Councilmember Rao.
Well, I'm fine with voting tonight. If the council wants to, I'm fine either way, but I've got all the things that I need to make a decision. So I'm fine with voting tonight. But if the council wants to push it back, I'm fine as well.
Right, exactly. I think we're all looking to be very considerate of each other. Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson, please.
I would be in favor of delaying at this time. There's quite a few things to consider. I actually liked Councilmember Fender's suggestions about kind of rethinking the paradigm a little bit, and maybe with another couple weeks, or even if more time is needed, there could be something that is returned that is a win for everybody. So I am in support of a delay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fender?
Well, if we vote tonight, my vote will be no. So I am going with delay, hoping the developer will come up with another idea.
Thank you. Councilmember Rabati?
I'm ready to vote, but if you all need 2 weeks, that's fine with me too.
Thank you. Councilmember Garamella?
Same here. I'm ready to vote if needed, and if Vicky and others need more time, I'm totally fine.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
So I'm fine with giving everybody a little bit more time. 2 weeks is good. I will tell you though, somebody needs to tell me why this product is why this product is no good here, but it's okay in another location in town. It doesn't. There is the road network here can accommodate this development. The school issue is going to be the same, if not more. And you've heard me before say, I'm not pleased that we're going to be doing residential in the McCrimmon area. That was my compromise in the land use plan. I'm not pleased about that. And I am going to hold my feet to the fire, or hold everybody's feet to the fire, about the number of units that are going in that area, which will be apartments. So, you know, I think it's important to have housing opportunities for the folks that work in Morrisville near the work where the jobs are. And so I don't know, if you look out here in this area, there are not hundreds, but thousands of jobs in this area. And you know, to add 199 units to give these folks the opportunity to live and work in the same vicinity and hopefully walk to work. You know, I know we can't guarantee where people live. I get that. Some people are fine with driving an hour because they want to live out on a, you know, big piece of property, and others want to live right near work and be able to walk there. So you know, I'm not one that wanted residential in the McCrimmon. This area was always outside of the noise overlay. So I personally was always okay with putting development, residential development in this area. Not so thrilled about the sub area.
Okay. So it sounds like you're okay to vote.
No, I said a delay of 2 weeks is fine to give people
Okay.
opportunity.
Sounds good. So it sounds like we have a general consensus for the most part to go ahead and delay. I echo that. If my fellow council members need more time. From the beginning, I've been encouraging the applicant to sharpen their pencil and take another look. And I'm glad that they will have the opportunity to do that. So I'll recognize Councilmember Rabati.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to Mayor Pro Tem's question. I obviously don't speak for everyone, Mayor Pro Tem, but to me, it's not okay in all the other parts of town where we are getting so many new units. And I am very much in favor of just waiting to upzone things until we see how things shake out with all the other people that are going to come into the development by right. So for me, that's where I'm coming from. You know, I hope that you can understand that. Thank you.
Okay. If anyone wants to make any more comments before I recognize Mr. Ghosh.
I had one.
Okay, Councilmember Rao, please.
Sorry, I forgot to type it in.
It's fine.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Mayor.
We're in the discussion part. That's fine.
Okay. Well, no, I just want to make sure that, you know, I just want to make sure that I did have a great conversation with Councilmember Fender, like I do all my colleagues, and I think she did bring up some great points. But I think that part of the challenge is whether the applicant's really already done a lot of things, and, you know, I don't want to, you know, make them come back with complete something different where we lose all the conditions that I like about the project, the infrastructure, the workforce housing. So I just want to set the expectations that what is I understand Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson's point of reviewing the stuff in writing, but I just want to be fair to the applicant that, you know, they've worked so hard with the staff to get it to this point. And so we either have to vote yes or no. And I think the affordable housing units and some of these conditions for me swung me even more to like say, look, I think we ought to give this project a look. So I just want to be fair because when a statement was made like, let's give it another look and come back with a new product, I don't think that can happen. And if we ask them to come back with a whole new product, it might eliminate a lot of these conditions that we've worked on. So I just want to make sure that we're being clear and transparent with the applicant as well. Sorry for the echo.
Okay, I was going to ask if everyone who is not speaking at the time can please mute their microphones. That will help with the echo. Councilmember Fender, please, and then myself.
So I will say that I'm not going to be guilted into rushing this vote simply because the developer has worked so hard. I said from the very first review of this application that I wanted to see something else from the developer other than apartments. So I have said that from the very beginning. So, you know, just because they have decided not to listen to me doesn't mean that I'm not gonna keep saying it. And also to echo Councilmember Robati's explanation as well, that you know, I see it, the reason why that multifamily apartments is a bad idea in this area as opposed to the sub areas is because I think I feel I'm already making a compromise in the TOD area and the McCrimmon extension. We already know there's gonna be apartments in those areas anyway. So that already, as Ann says, all the parcels of land that can have apartments by right, we're already going to have apartments in those areas. So in this parcel where we actually have a vote on it and some control, then I'm not going to roll over easily and allow them to put apartments in this location too. I think we have way more than apartments in our town. And, you know, the developer can still invest in the infrastructure without, you know, putting something else there as opposed to apartments. That's all I have.
Thank you. A lot of what I was going to say you just said, because it's a bit of a death by 1,000 cuts. We have control and we have authority to do certain things, and this is one of them, where we slow down development so we can try to catch up from the hole that we're in for our infrastructure. And it's not just roads. The road right there by this site is totally adequate for the traffic in the area right now. It's nice to get a little bit of improvements. Whoever develops whatever they develop there will improve the road. I don't feel that there's any rush to allow development since we are behind on our infrastructure. If this was two separate applications, I would vote in favor of the office. I pretty much said that at the beginning. If this applicant wants to move forward with the office and separate out the rest and resharpen their pencil, I would be very much in favor of seeing that. But outside of our sub-areas, where we shared with our residents our vision to allow apartments only within the sub-areas, I feel very hesitant unless there's a lot more sweetener, not just parks payment in lieu, but actual park dedications somewhere of significant amounts that actually helps our infrastructure catch up. This is, to want of a better phrase, putting lipstick on a pig. It's a bad deal, in my opinion, for the town at this time, until we get caught up. I don't see any other comments in chat right now, so I'd like to recognize the applicant, Mr. Ghosh, who has had his hand up patiently for a while, so we appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your comments. I will say about a delay. I mean, we totally understand. We've offered many additional conditions, which have not been reduced to writing for the benefit of you all. So a 2-week delay would be plenty of time for us to put those in writing so that they can be reviewed more readily by you all. Also, we'll just publicly apologize to Councilwoman Fender and Councilwoman Rabati if I've offended anyone. I guess I was in the passion of the moment. I do take issue with the idea that Dominion somehow is not a part of the Morrisville community, given the amount of significant investment they have in the area. But I do apologize about my earlier comments. And thank you very much for everyone listening tonight. And if the applicant would be open to a 2-week delay to the extent that matters. It's just, that's not something that offends us at all. Thank you.
Councilmember Rabati, please.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Know better, do better.
Okay. To summarize, I believe that we have enough consensus of the council that we're going to delay this vote by 2 weeks. Would that be okay with staff?
Yes, it's fine with staff, Mayor. Thank you.
And it's okay with the applicant? So we are good on this. I think we've heard the final from Mr. Ghosh at this time. So we're going to move on to our next item. Thank you very much for a very good discussion. Thank you, Mr. Ward. At this time, we are at item 9, future meetings, events, and citizen involvement opportunities. Always for a full listing of events, please see the town calendar at www.townofmorrisville.org. Yes?
There is an action item.
Okay. Let me take a peek. I thought we were delaying all 3. Oh, yep. I skipped number 8. I apologize. Thank you very much for that. Okay, there is one new item on tonight's agenda, a proposed major amendment of the Aviation Landing Mixed-Use Plan Development District for 245 Aviation Parkway. Elliot Ward, Planner 2, will present the item. So thanks for sticking around, Mr. Ward. Go ahead.
Thank you again, Mayor. I'll just wait for Jeannie to get to the presentation. Thank you, Jeannie. So tonight's new item is item 2021-24-0. This is a request for a major amendment and zoning map amendment for the Aviation Landing Mixed-Use Plan Development. The Aviation Landing Mixed-Use Plan Development is approximately 10.21 acres across 7 different parcels. The site is located on the northern side of Aviation Parkway and northeast of Liberty Hill Pass and is in the town's jurisdiction. KG and Son LLC is requesting to incorporate approximately 0.14 acres, shown here on the right in yellow, of the adjacent parcel, commonly known as 322 Sunset Avenue, and specifically known as Wake County PIN 0755-26-5566 to the Aviation Landing MUPD. This is the original approved site plan. The townhome portion back here is referred to as Track 2. Originally, this street here, known as Street B currently, was approved along this western property line. This amendment would shift that street over to the eastern side and better align with the current Sunset Avenue and just make for more cohesive development with the existing residential development to the north. The total number of units has not changed. They have just shifted to accommodate the change in the street itself. So the portion yellow being added from the adjacent property will make it possible to shift that street over to the right. In addition to the street change, there is a request to push back the maximum setback in that Track 2 area for the townhomes from 18 to 24 feet. This is primarily to allow for the change in the street and allow these southern homes here to still comply with UDO requirements. Also, the PUD agreement originally stated that the culverts under Aviation Parkway would be upgraded as part of the aviation landing project. However, after discussions with NCDOT, this language has been updated to indicate that the culverts will actually be upgraded with the Aviation Parkway widening project. There were also a few just minor language changes that are highlighted in yellow throughout the document. At the February 11th, 2021 meeting, the PZB voted unanimously to recommend approval of the requested amendments. Staff is also recommending approval of the requested amendments based on the following. The requested major amendment is consistent with the recommendations in the adopted 2021 land use plan. The requested major amendment would allow for development that is compatible with the residential subdivision to the north, and the requested major amendment is consistent with the recommendations in the UDO. Council should hold a public hearing on the proposed amendment request at the March 23rd meeting, and action is currently slated for the April 13th meeting. That is all I have for now, and Chris Rakowski is here representing the applicant, and he's available to answer any questions you may have as well.
Thank you. Did Mr. Rakowski want to address the group first, or just wait for questions?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. There's not a whole lot to this, and Elliot kind of summed it up, so as opposed to repeating everything that Elliot's already said, I'll just open up to any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. I'll recognize Councilmember Rabati for a question for staff or the applicant.
Yes, who currently owns 322 Sunset Avenue, the parcel that this land is currently part of? Or am I misunderstanding the situation?
Yeah, so it is currently owned by, I believe it's Manny Bergen. And so we kind of entered into an agreement with him for him to dedicate 20 feet of land to us in exchange for basically having frontage along on this stub street. So he'll have access to a public right of way to develop or to help develop the western side of his property on the western side of that stream buffer.
Okay, so you've already worked that out then?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
So if I recall, when we talked about this project the last time, this was that piece of property that we all focused on. Wasn't, because I like this layout much better. We had this conversation about this strange piece of property. Am I remembering correctly? Is my memory serving me right?
That's correct. And this one's kind of, the parcel to the east there is split by the same stream that we're running the greenway up along. And so it's kind of really, it's owned by one property owner, but its access is really limited in the way it sits today. So yeah, we were able to speak with them, and we get the benefit of putting the street over there and have better townhome units on the west side there, as well as leaving a little extra room for a landscape buffer to the west there. But yes, this is that parcel.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. This is, in my opinion, it looks much better. This kind of flows much better too. So thank you.
Okay. And I appreciate the comments of my fellow council members and the questions. I think that this looks good. I look forward to hearing if the public sees anything that they don't like. The public hearing will be on the 23rd, as was mentioned. So we're always liking engagement from our citizens, so they let us know what they see, make sure that they're happy with what they're seeing as well. So looking for any other comments or questions in chat. And seeing none, I'll just recap as was mentioned, scheduled for a public hearing and more discussion on the 23rd, and vote the following meeting. Mr. Ward, anything final to add?
That's all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Rakowski, for being with us tonight. At this time, we are actually at item 9, future meetings, events, and citizen involvement opportunities. As always, for a full listing, please see town calendar at www.townofmorrisville.org. Want to share a few items. Every Saturday, our Healthy Food Hub hosts the Western Wake Farmers Market from 9:30 a.m. until noon. Please come visit and practice the 3 W's. I'm looking forward to their summer hours coming soon, but not yet, so it's still 9:30 start. Our next free meals distribution at Morrisville Elementary School will be Saturday, March 20th from 11:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. Please tell your friends and neighbors. It is each first and third Saturday. Please save the date for Saturday, March 27th for our annual Easter egg hunt at 10 a.m. Eastern Time at Cedar Fork District Park. As expected, due to COVID, this year will look a little different. You choose how you want to enjoy your adventure. You can visit our website to sign up online for one of our family egg hunts at Cedar Fork District Park, or register online to pick up your supply of eggs and crafts to take home. And this event is appropriate for children 0 to 10 years old. The Connect Morrisville Strategic Plan Update Survey is open. If you go to our website on the front page, the first news item at the bottom right is on this item, so if you click there, the survey will come up. So we look forward to a lot of input about our Connect Morrisville Strategic Plan. We had a lot of discussion about that at the retreat, and we're looking forward to lots of citizen input as we're making this the best possible plan for our future. At this time, we are at council and manager comments, and I'll recognize council members in order, and I shared that earlier. First will be Councilmember Ravati, please.
Yes, I'd just like to wish all of my fellow council members, Councilmember Fender, Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson, and Councilmember and Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, a happy female elected officials day, and it's a pleasure serving with all of you. Thank you.
Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson, please.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Ravati. I appreciate that, and I also echo those sentiments. It was a really interesting 2020 to start out with a female majority, and now we have another female majority, and I'd like to see you again. With COVID vaccine out there, I think we are going to have our wish sometime this year. So I'm looking forward to seeing you, serving with you, and of course the rest of the council. It'd be great to see them too. I don't have any other comments at this time, but probably next meeting I will have a few as we're going into some of our conferences regarding municipalities, and we should all have updates for that later this month. Thank you.
Councilmember Fender?
I will just thank Councilmember Ravati as well for that sentiment. It is pretty nice that the women are in the majority on this council. It just made me think of, and only some people will get this, but it made me think of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's quote, when there are 9.
Okay. Yes. Last week, I participated in tree planting with a Morrisville resident whose global company is planning to plant 1 million trees, and I look forward to partnering with them here in Morrisville and promoting their efforts and other environmental sustainability initiatives within the town with other partner organizations as well going forward. And this is a great month to recognize women and leaders. Definitely appreciate working with this group that we have here. So now I'd like to recognize Councilmember Rao.
Thank you, Mayor. I first of all want to thank the council and staff for a wonderful retreat, and it was excellent, very well done, and we got a lot done. And I also just want to congratulate the Smart City Steering Committee. It's a big achievement to be the committee, and I really want to thank Eric Smith, our clerk. He does such a great job running the meetings. I've been watching more of them online. A lot of times I'll see some of you on there with me. But I think with the Smart City Committee, I hope it gives us an opportunity to take on things like data in the schools. I'd love to get a better sense of multifamily, the kind of multifamily we have in Morrisville, and whether we can get data in real time so we have a better idea as we look at development of the impact on our school systems. And the final thing I'll say is I do want to thank Councilmember Body for that statement. It's an honor to serve with a women majority council, and I'm proud of each of you, and I'm proud of all the achievements that women are making. We have a long way to go, but we've got a woman vice president now, a female, and we'll one day have a president. And I just think that it is wonderful to serve with each and every one of you. So thank you. Have a good evening.
Councilmember Garamella, please.
Yeah, I would like to echo, what has been said, especially recognizing women in public office, along with my fellow council women, and also the staff. I think the town of Morrisville put that beautiful picture of all our department heads. That was pretty neat, and that really speaks volume of how things are really moving. And thanks to each one of them. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Okay, I'm going to echo everything that's been said about happy Women Elected Officials Day. I also want to acknowledge all the women in Morrisville and all that they do for our community, the women in the past that brought us here and the women today that are working tirelessly in our community to make Morrisville the best place it can be. So I acknowledge all women. If you all remember, it was a year ago this time was our very last regular pre-COVID meeting. Our last meeting was March 10th before we all locked down. So we've made it, people. We're coming out on the other end, but just stay vigilant and safe out there, because there is a light at the end of this pandemic. So I'm appreciative that everybody is healthy and safe so far. The only other thing, yes, congratulations and welcome to the Smart City Steering Committee. I was watching the other night too, Steve, so I welcome them and all that they're going to do for us, so I thank them very much. I also want to do a huge shout out and a thank you to Kyle Cooper in our Parks and Recs department for heading up the stewardship program. Several of us on council were out this weekend with our stewardship event, and I want to thank Kyle for staying with us all afternoon and for his organizing the various groups that are participating in the Morrisville Stewardship program. So, and that, everybody else said everything else. So thank you. That's the end of my comments.
Okay. Town Manager Page, anything from you or staff?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we have a scheduled break. So my computer clock says it's 7:33. If we could please reconvene at 7:44. Please announce in chat when you are back. We are in a quick recess for 10 minutes. Quick break. Thank you. Okay, it is 7:44. I'm going to bring us back into session after that break. We are now at item 11. It's a work session, and we have one work session on tonight's agenda, a debt financing capacity model update. Jeannie Hooks will facilitate this discussion. Ms. Hooks.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. It's our pleasure to bring this information back to you since our discussion at retreat. So we worked with the team, our financial advisors. Ted Cole is with us tonight, and Mitch Bergoglio with Davenport and Associates. And they're going to walk through the updated debt capacity model. We did a quick turnaround based on your interest and feedback at retreat, just to layer in really more project-specific information at a high level so you can get a feel for really, based on project timing and priorities, how that debt capacity might look overall. Now, this is both bond and installment financing collectively together. So I think at this time I'm going to turn it over to, I believe, Ted, you're up first, and then Mitch.
That's right. Yep. Good evening. This is Ted Cole. It's a pleasure to be participating in tonight's meeting. I think Jeannie is going to turn the slides for us, but there are page numbers in the lower right corner if anybody needs a reference point. I'm going to start us off, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mitch. Jeannie, if you want to go to the next slide, I guess there we go. And we're working off of page 2 here. I'm going to set the framework for just real quickly where you all stand today on your bond ratings and your existing debt and how you're positioned relative to your policies. The town is rated AAA from all three of the national rating agencies, as shown on the right-hand side of this page. AAA is the highest rating any local government can achieve. So you have sort of reached that absolute highest level. There is always an opportunity to improve the strength, even if you are AAA. And in all of our planning work here, talking about capital and debt, we are trying to put a plan together that not only accommodates and achieves what it is that you all want to do, but in doing so is also helping to strengthen your credit profile. Debt is just a part of the credit profile, but it's an important part of the credit profile. We are going to show you some comparisons on a couple of slides. We subscribe to a database that Moody's maintains, so one of the three rating agencies. And on the left-hand side of this page, you will see we're going to talk about some peer groups, cities and towns nationally that are rated AAA, one of which is Morrisville. There's about 220 of those across the country. AA1, which is one rating level below you, about 280, and almost 600 or so cities and towns that are rated AA2. And then within North Carolina, cities and towns, you can see your AAA peers. There are 12, including Morrisville, so you get a sense of who those localities are. And then the rating level right beneath you all is about 11 different cities and towns that have a AA1 rating, and then a little bit further down, AA2, there are 12 cities and towns across the state. So it just gives you a little perspective of your rating peers. And again, we're going to pull in this data briefly on the front end of this discussion to show you how you compare to those rating categories, whether it's nationally or North Carolina. Next slide. So slide number 3 here shows your current existing tax-supported debt profile. So in the upper left, we've got it graphically. Everything we look at is on a fiscal year basis. So we're in the midst of FY21. All of the debt that you all have on the books today, it sums up to just under $28 million of debt outstanding. That's the principal component, debt outstanding, and it pays off over time with the final payments in 2039. And you will notice graphically that your annual debt service, principal plus interest, is stepping down year by year, and some years the step downs are greater than others. And that's a function of older bond issues rolling off, but generally a debt structure that provides you with debt service reductions year over year, which is pretty typical for North Carolina, and it sets you up nicely for having some natural capacity or affordability to take on new debt in the future, because every year your required debt service payments are stepping down. So you can see it graphically, or on the right-hand side of the page, you can see the detail by fiscal year, principal, interest, and total. We know that to the penny. All of your debt is fixed rate. It doesn't change unless you change it, normally for a refunding opportunity. So we can project that debt service payments very accurately. And on the far right-hand side of this page is a setup for one of the first debt ratios we'll look at, and that's the column that's headed 10-year payout ratio. What that is a forward-looking measure. It looks forward over a 10-year period, and it is a percentage that measures how much of that principal that's outstanding will be repaid in the next 10 years. So generally speaking, higher percentage is better. It demonstrates that you are amortizing your debt more quickly. You're not backloading your debt. So when we look at 2021 on this slide, your 10-year payout ratio is about 62%. So in other words, 10 years from now, 62% of the principal that's outstanding will have been repaid. And you'll see how that compares to those other peers here in a moment. And it's also something we're going to look at when we start talking about new projects that might require debt, as we put a plan together, we want to make sure that we're putting a plan together that helps, maintain a strong debt profile and allows us to continue to be in compliance with our policies. Go to the next slide. And I should have said, Jeannie, Mayor, if there are questions, please stop us. We're happy to explain. If there's a hand-raising function, I'll try to keep an eye on it, but Jeannie, feel free to stop me somehow if we need to answer a question along the way. I'm on page 4. This is a graphic. It's a little bit differently. That 10-year payout that I just spoke about, if you look at the left-hand side, those green bars represent the 10-year payout percentage for you all, and they're going up over time. There's a red line. That is your policy. That policy says we do not want that ratio to fall below the 55%. That's your policy. So we want the green bars above the red line, and that is the case. So we are demonstrating that our payout ratio is in compliance with our policy currently and is projected to continue to be in compliance. On the right-hand side, upper right, is where we introduce the peer comparisons. Morrisville is in the top bar, the gold bar, and then we have the national AAAs, AA1s, and AA2s in the light green, and the North Carolina AAAs, AA1s, and AA2s in the dark green. Those bars represent the median, so half of the peer group is higher, half is lower. Remember, with this particular ratio, payout ratio, higher is better. You want your bars further off to the right. What I will tell you is you compare, very well to the medians, particularly within North Carolina, and then you can drill down where the cursor is now, and you can get a little better sense of within any rating category. And let's pick the AAAs, for example. There's 12 of those cities and towns in North Carolina that are AAA. Somebody as low as 50% and somebody's as high as 78%. So you're pretty close to the median. You're at 62%, so you might be a tad below the median, but you're also not the low measure within that peer group. And as I said, debt is an important part of the credit profile. Individual debt ratios do get considered, but none of those in and of themselves is a key driver to the rating outcome, but we do want to be mindful of them. Go to the next slide. The next ratio is where we're measuring debt outstanding as a percent of your tax base. So again, roughly $28 million of debt outstanding on a tax base of approximately $6.2 billion. And we do that math, you are at 0.45%. Those green bars are your ratio, so you're under 0.5%, and it's declining over time because you're paying off your debt every year, and we are assuming a growth rate in the town's tax base of 3%. Keep in mind, this is just the existing debt. We have not yet started talking about new debt. You have a policy that says we don't want to go above 2%, so you're well below that policy today, and you're going to see what it looks like when we start modeling your capital improvement program or your CIP. And this is a good opportunity for me to make a distinction. You'll hear us talk about debt capacity and debt affordability. And so when I talk about debt capacity and you look at this slide and you see that your debt to assessed value is 0.5%, you'll see that compared to the other rating categories, you're lower, and lower is better, and you'll see that you're well below your policy. Looking at this in a vacuum, we would say the town absolutely has debt capacity. That is, we could take on additional debt for whatever the purpose might be within reason. It's not endless capacity, but within reason, and still demonstrate that we're consistent with strong credit rating, AAA ratings, and we're compliant with our policy. So you certainly have capacity. I think the other question that we'll get into is affordability. It is not always the case that you have capacity and affordability. Often you have capacity, but affordability is a different question and maybe not quite as easy to answer. So right now we're talking about capacity. And clearly, as we measure your debt in this context on page 5, there is capacity, and you line up very well to those peers, and you fall into the very strong category for the rating agencies. Next slide, and this is the last ratio or policy. This is debt service versus expenditures. So now we're measuring how much of your annual budget is going towards debt service. And the rating agencies do a fairly complex calculation, but the long and short of it is in FY21, the year we're in, you're just under 11%, 10.7%. Next year in FY22, because you do have a step down in your annual debt service budget, it'll be down to about 9.5%, and it's declining every year. Those green bars in the upper left are declining every year. So again, a function of paying off debt every year, your annual payments coming down, and we have also assumed a growth rate in your baseline budget of 3%. So you have a policy that says not to exceed 15%. That's the red line. You're below it. And again, like the prior slide, there is capacity here within this policy, within this ratio, to start talking about potential new debt. And the question will become, is it affordable? The upper right is showing the comparison to the national and North Carolina cities and towns, and you can see you're right on that AAA median, and you can also see within the North Carolina AAAs, there's somebody as high as 22%, I believe is what that number is. So again, I can't emphasize enough that debt is certainly an important part of the rating process, but it is not in and of itself the driver. And while you might say, you know, you've got AAAs in North Carolina with this particular ratio, somebody as low as 7%, as high as 22%, kind of how can that be? Well, it's partially because while important, it's not a huge percentage of the rating process, and somebody that has high debt service to expenditures might offset that with strengths elsewhere, whether it's their economy, their liquidity and fund balance, things like that. All right, next slide, and this is my last slide. I'm on page 7. This is where we introduce debt affordability, and you all, credit to your staff, have a very straightforward, very a simple debt budgeting process. So as you look at the left-hand side of this page, we have fiscal year listed. Again, we start with fiscal year 21, and we go out till the debt is all paid off. Column B is in boy, is the debt service for the bonds and all of the debt that is on your books today. We looked at that earlier. We know what it is. We know what it is every fiscal year. This is principal and interest, and you can see what that is through the final payment in fiscal year 39. For the time being, we have left columns C, D, and E blank. Mitch is going to get to that when we transition in a minute to talking about your capital improvement program, your CIP, and what kind of debt might be in play to fund that CIP. So right now, no new debt is in this table. Column F is in Frank, is a sum. It's, in this case, the exact same numbers as column B. So that is your debt service going forward. And you all, as I said earlier, a fairly simple and straightforward debt budgeting process. You are essentially appropriating from current year revenues $3.5 million towards your tax-supported debt currently. And you will see that under column G, we've held that $3.5 million flat every year. Obviously, that will be a decision that you all will make with staff on a budget-by-budget basis. But for planning purposes, we're assuming $3.5 million a year of revenues available to repay debt. And I want to take you to column J. This is where we compare the payments under column F versus the revenue that you're budgeting under column I, and you'll see that every year right now is a surplus. So in other words, if you continue to budget the $3.5 million a year, which is what you've been budgeting at least for a couple of years, and your existing debt we know does step down year over year, we are creating some surplus dollars within this capital plan under column J, and those are dollars that will be available to you all to start to pay for whatever it is that you all decide to take on for capital funding, for debt. So it's sort of the starting point that we use to start to measure your future debt affordability. And this is where Mitch is going to pick up. That's the starting point. You know, how much can we do with those dollars under column J to cover new debt in the future? And then you're going to also see where we supplement those dollars with an assumption about 2 new pennies on the tax rate or 3 pennies on the tax rate, whether they're, again, I should say new pennies, or you find the equivalent of 2 or 3 pennies within your current budget. And last thing I'll mention, each penny for you all generates about $620,000 of revenue. So as we evolve into this next section, we're going to build on this existing debt profile, this existing debt budgeting model, and start talking about your CIP and what kind of debt might be required to fund that CIP. Mitch?
All right. Well, good evening. Again, this is Mitch Berguglio with Davenport. And as Ted mentioned, using that affordability analysis that Ted just walked through, we had prepared a series of capacity cases. How much debt could you issue within those existing resources, and then adding a series of additional tax rates to that analysis, and provided that ahead of y'all's retreat for y'all to consider when thinking through the projects. We're now going to transition from that more capacity-driven analysis to looking at the specific projects and priorities that came out of the board retreat to see how that lines up with the dollars you have available to fund the projects. So the page Jeannie has up right now, page 9, is a listing of those project priorities that we understand that came out of the retreat. And there was generally 11 projects, prioritized 1 through 11, that totaled up to $56 million. For each project, we have worked with staff to understand the earliest potential issuance date for those specific projects. And by that earliest potential issuance date, the Local Government Commission, who oversees all local government debt in North Carolina, will require that the town is able to demonstrate a firm cost for the projects before they will allow us to issue the debt. So generally speaking, that means the town will need to have bids in hand for any of the projects that they are looking to fund, that we're looking to issue debt to fund. So therefore, the earliest issuance date is going to be a driver for us for when the bonds are issued. There are a few projects such as the Future Parks Open Space Acquisition, other transportation transit-related projects, and other public facilities, town center land acquisition projects that have been identified as to be determined. Don't have a firm date on those projects, but we'll work to layer those in and fund that debt as quickly as we can. So what we've done, and there's a summary on page 10. I know it's a little small, Jeannie. Maybe we could scroll in a little bit. It's a little small, but we've set up a series of analyses to test how quickly and how much of these projects could we fund under 3 scenarios. Case 1 is going to look at a 2-cent tax increase in fiscal year 22, and cases 2 and 3 are going to look at a 3-cent tax increase in fiscal year 22, but a different funding, different timing for funding some of those projects. There are any number of iterations of these various projects and timing and amounts that we could ultimately work with, but I think these cases will give you a framework for the conversation and thinking through the projects. So let me walk you through what we've got on page 10. We've restated in columns A through E, we've restated the project priorities, what the actual projects are, which financing category they fall into. I believe you all have been focused on 3 general categories: facilities, parks and rec, and transportation. We then restate the earliest potential issuance date for those projects, and we list that in terms of the fiscal year. And then we have the amount requested in column E. So what we did is we started from the top and began funding the top priority projects first in the years they were requested, and then tried to fit in the later priorities as we could. And so case 1 is a 2-penny tax increase. We were not able to fund all the projects under this scenario. We were able to fund $39.3 million of the $56 million of projects. And in this case, we were able to fund all of projects 1 through project 4. All of those are funded as requested. Project 5, the Future Parks and Open Space Acquisition Plan, we were able to fund $5.1 million of the $7.3 million that have been identified in the project list. And then we were able to fund Project 6 as requested, and Project 7, the Crabtree Nature Park, was originally requested to be funded, or the earliest issuance date would be 2023. That had to be delayed till 2026 in order to fit within the cash flows. So case 1, 2 pennies, again, we can fund $39.3 million of the projects, and the Crabtree Park was delayed, and the Future Parks Open Space Phase 1 was reduced from $7.3 to $5.1 million. In case 2, we have an additional penny to work with, so that would be a 3-cent tax increase in fiscal year 2022. We can fund the entire $56 million of requested projects. But in this case, we had to delay the Crabtree Nature Park from 2023, which was the earliest potential issuance date, to fiscal year 26. In doing so, again, we were able to fund the entire $56 million, but that project was delayed. As an alternative, if case 3 looks at if you wanted to keep Crabtree Nature Park in 2023, that earliest potential issuance date, we would not be able to fund all of the projects. Project 11 for the public facilities, town center, and land acquisition would have to be dropped. So that $2.5 million project would not be funded, but we could fund Crabtree Nature Park at the earliest issuance date in 2023, and we can fund a little bit of the Parks Open Space Acquisition Phase 1 a little bit earlier. So those are kind of the 2 variables in all of these cases that we're seeing is the timing of Crabtree Nature Park and the timing and amounts of the Future Parks and Open Space Acquisition. All of the other to be determined project timing, projects 8 through 11, when they are issued, they're issued in fiscal year 26. We've then also shown you for each of these cases the totals by financing category. So, thinking ahead to a GO bond referendum, what buckets or what questions would these amounts fall within. You can see the allocation between facilities, parks and rec, and transportation. And we've also shown you the fiscal year funding summary. So this is on lines 29 through 35, shows you the amount of debt that's being issued by fiscal year. And if you want to think about alternative timing or alternative funding strategies for these projects, a good rule of thumb is we've got these fiscal year total amounts. If you accelerate a project or increase the amount of a project, you need to reduce or delay a project from that same fiscal year. As long as your fiscal year funding totals are the same, that will work within this plan. And then I'm sure there are questions on this summary and perhaps how it's working, but let me just flip forward quickly, Jeannie, to page 11. The other item that we looked at for all three of these cases is we revisited the key debt ratios. In developing the cases, we were focused on the debt affordability that Ted talked about, the annual cash flows, the annual dollars you have available to pay debt service, fitting that debt service within those dollars with 2 or 3 additional pennies. But we also need to keep an eye on the debt capacity or these key debt ratios compared to your policies. And in all three cases, you would be in compliance with your 10-year payout and with your debt to assess value. However, in each of the cases, we're projecting for some period of time, between 4 to 8 years, you would be above the 15% debt service to expenditures mark, which is the top end of your policy. I believe we've talked about this in the past, and this is a conversation and a trend we're seeing with a lot of our clients around the state. As we're coming out of the Great Recession, budgets tended to be held down. And in this COVID environment, folks are holding the line on budgets. So this debt service to expenditure ratio gets pressured a little bit. From our perspective, in talking with the credit rating agencies, we've had this conversation numerous times with clients, and it hasn't necessarily been a credit negative for them that they've been above their policy for some period of time, as long as what the rating agencies have tended to care about is that you all as a council are looking at these ratios, are projecting these ratios, and when making a decision to move forward, you're aware that there may be a period of time that you're out of compliance, but you're going to work to get back into compliance as quickly as possible. That conversation is actually kind of worked out the reverse, intended to be a positive discussion, in that the town has a very well-defined planning process and that you're looking at these things and making decisions, understanding what the potential impacts would be, as opposed to waking up one day and finding out you may be out of compliance with the policy. We have all of the details for each of these three cases included in the presentation. Not necessarily going to walk through those tonight unless you'd like me to, but as you're considering these cases and thinking through them, all those details are there, and I'm happy to answer any questions on those. So let me pause there and see if there are any questions at this point.
So we'll open the chat for questions. If council will just put in the chat box whether you had a question 1 or a comment 1, Mitch and Ted will address those. So Mitch, we have our first candidate, Councilmember Rabati. You have your first question?
Yes. So did I understand you correctly to say that being out of compliance with our debt service to expenditure ratio for even the number of, it looks like we're going to be out of compliance for a number of years, 7 years, even in that case 3. So did I understand you to say that that will not endanger our AAA rating with Moody's or the other services?
Let me say, can't guarantee anything related to the rating agencies. They're going to do their own analysis, but from our experience, it has not been that in and of itself would not be necessarily be the reason for rating jeopardy. There's a lot of assumptions that are based into this analysis. We've got conservative interest rates, so if interest rates come in better, that would improve these results. If your tax base grows and accordingly your budget grows more quickly, that would improve these ratios. Mm-hmm. So I don't believe that this in and of itself would jeopardize the town's rating. I think it's more important to acknowledge that and understand where you could be if this set of scenarios play out and work to minimize that going forward.
Okay, and then just if you could just go back to the slide that you were just on. So is it factored in anywhere that Crabtree Creek Nature Park is being paid for out of the payment in lieu Parks and Rec funds?
So I can take that one, Mitch. Councilmember Rabati, we had anticipated this to be a bond project and have our parkland payment in lieu available for other needs to leverage even for additional land acquisition or other smaller park projects that you might prioritize in your CIP. We did recognize in the amount that the design cost was coming from the parkland payment in lieu. So there's a portion of it that's being paid for through parkland payment in lieu. And then the other piece that I recognized was that there was the opportunity for a grant. So what's remaining here, what's showing, is the portion that we would expect to be coming from a bond and financing instrument. Hopefully that answered your question.
That does answer my question. I'm going to have follow-up questions that aren't necessarily related, that are more related to that project than to this chart, so I'll save those for the next time we're talking about the project. But I see that the Public Facilities Town Center land acquisition, in any of the scenarios, it looks like it's either not funded or isn't funded until 2026. I'm concerned that by 2026 there isn't going to be any land to acquire. So I think that's why I wondered about the Crabtree Creek Nature Park, because it looks like we're funding that at the expense of the public facilities and town center land acquisition. And that concerns me.
And I think that's a fair statement. I think that's a decision that council could discuss as really what is most important to utilize your debt capacity for versus leveraging your other sources. I will say that your public facilities, town center, and land acquisition, it could be more than just land acquisition that you're talking about. It could actually be project related, depending on your town center vision, that you know that there's more conversations to come with that.
And Jeannie, if I might just add too, in this analysis, we have assumed a 4.5% interest rate on this debt, and to the extent the interest cost comes in lower, to the extent the tax base grows more quickly and more revenue is generated from the number of pennies that you put into place, that could help create some additional capacity in the future to accelerate some projects as council desires.
Absolutely. Good point, Mitch. So our next person up is Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thanks, Jeannie. And Councilmember Robati and I are on the same wavelength. So we'll start on this same slide that you have up. So we can play with these scenarios, but we need to keep the dollar amounts similar to what you have in the years specified. Is that fair to say?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. So as long as, if you look at the bottom of the chart, lines 29 through 35, as long as those amounts by fiscal year are the same, the results should hold.
Okay, because we could come up with, you came up with 3 scenarios. We could come up with 6 more if we wanted to. So, well, maybe not 6, but we could come up with 3 more. Okay, that's good. Thank you. And then thank you for you used the 4.5% interest rate. The 1 cent that we generate, that is the $620K right now. Is that the assumption you use throughout the whole thing, or do you increase that throughout this program?
Yes, ma'am. So the fiscal year 21 value of the penny is assumed at $620,000, and we've assumed a 3% growth rate per year.
I'm sorry, you did say that. That's right. You said 3%. Okay, and all right, that's fair. And then if we go to the next slide again, where we're out of compliance, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit too. And you've already kind of addressed this. You've said these are estimates, and there are a lot of factors that can change what we're seeing in front of us. But based on maybe our past experience and past estimates that we've done, how true to this do we think we're going to be? I mean, based maybe on our past experience, when we've come up with these kind of charts that show us 4 or 8 years out of compliance, were we really 4 and 8 years out of compliance, or did we do better? That might be a question for Jeannie.
Yeah, I think maybe a couple of us. Jeannie, I'll start. This is Ted Cole.
Okay.
I would think on the debt service to expenditure ratio, debt service is the numerator, your expenditures are the denominator. We've been conservative on our debt service estimates. In other words, we've assumed a higher interest rate, which means a higher payment. If that were to, so we've got a little bit of room for some variance there, and we've assumed, I think, Mitch, a 3% growth in the expenditure part of the calculation.
Correct.
Is that right, 3%?
I believe that's right. I'll confirm that.
So to the extent that does grow more quickly, that will help bring that ratio down. If the debt service is lower, that will create a lower percentage. So we feel like we've got some opportunity to outperform. I think the biggest unknown is just how quickly your operating budget may or may not grow relative to our assumed, I think it was 3%.
That's right.
Okay, that's a good point.
Maybe just one more thing I might answer on these policies. From a rating agency perspective, one of the real benefit of the policies that have been council adopted in this case is that they are looked at, they're discussed, and we have found the conversations with the rating agencies, if we find we've got a CIP that if we fund it, might put us out of compliance with a policy for some number of years, there's a couple ways to handle that. You could just not do as much of your CIP, which may be very problematic and stunt growth otherwise. You could amend your policy to make it all work. What we have found is the most productive discussion with the rating agencies is we're moving forward with projects we believe are necessary to sustain our growth and to bring services to our constituents, to our citizens. And we recognize that we might be out of compliance with our policy for a few years, and that's been brought to our attention. We've discussed it, and we've made a decision as an elected body to make an exception to that policy. And for a rating analyst, what that means is you all are truly engaged in the decision. You all are, you understand the policies. They're being discussed. They're not just on a shelf somewhere. So whether you're at 15% or 17 or 18%, I think is less important than the fact that you will have recognized that doing a capital project might put you out of compliance. You've acknowledged that, and you've made an exception. that really shows them engagement, which is what they're trying to get to.
Okay, thank you. That helps. And I'm not really frightened by this. Quite frankly, I think we've seen this in the past over years. That's why I asked what our kind of track record was. And I don't know that we've ever gotten really way out of compliance, but and there are so many factors that can affect this. And clearly the percentage of growth and the growth in the town will help with this chart in particular. So thank you for all that. And the last thing I'm going to say, and Jeannie, you already talked, the grants that we might receive, or Part F grants, or other monies that we might get to help with these projects, clearly will make a difference in all these charts too. So thank you.
It certainly can be a source you could leverage, but remember, this is, I told Martha, probably the first time I've ever felt like we've had a true CIP 5-year funding plan. If you look at these case studies, it's really pointing to that. You're planning out your 5 years worth of investments using debt, leveraging your capacity. The question is, what's affordable when you leverage tax incremental debt? But you have other resources to be able either to use for these projects to really lessen that impact as you build this plan, or to leverage for those projects that actually aren't even showing here, that are unfunded. So that's the piece you sort of have to weigh. But we heard loud and clear from council that you were preparing these shovel-ready projects using the reserve resources you had, with the intention of developing a financing plan to get them executed and put on the ground. And I will also add, Mayor Pro Tem, in the years that I've been here, and the years that I've worked with or been involved with the financial advisors Davenport, usually we're seeing the ratios perform better when we get to the actuals. Now, that's not a guarantee. It depends on the economy. It depends on what's going on. But normally we tend to see improvement, however small or large that might be year over year. So that's why we work with folks like Davenport to create conservative models to be able to look at worst case scenarios in hopes that it will be better and we will build additional capacity in the future.
That's very helpful, Jeannie. Thank you. And you're right. You're dead on. So thank you.
So our next council member, Fender, you have a question.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. First, I missed exactly what was said. The 3% growth rate, is that a growth in our revenue or growth in our expenses? Or both?
As it relates to the ratios in the modeling here, we've assumed a 3% growth in your tax base in one area, so your assessed value, and we've assumed 3% growth in your expenditures, your operating expenditures as well. So we've done a couple of different ratios. One is, and we're assuming 3% growth in both ratios, but one is measuring growth in the tax base and one is measuring growth in your operating budget.
Okay. And then I was looking at your report from last year, and it shows the value of a penny in 2020 was $500,000. So is the difference between the 500 and the 620 an increase in our tax base?
Mitch, do you want me to take that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a couple of things at play here. It's growth in our tax base, but it's also related to our revaluation that was recently accomplished.
Okay. So what has been the history of the past few years of the growth in our revenue?
So generally, our revenue can go anywhere between 3% and 5%. So normally, when we're doing assumptions and modeling just like this for budgets and long-range forecasting, I am typically sticking with the 3% model because your biggest revenue source is your tax base. And the way in which your tax base grows is actually through new development or revaluation of property as markets are adjusted. So 3% is really the golden rule here because your ad valorem represents about 53 to 54% of your total revenue source that you have at your disposal. The next one is your sales tax, and that one is generally grows around 6 to 9% in good years. Now, COVID, barring COVID, it's usually around 6 to 9%.
Okay. And then one last question. Going back to what Councilmember Robati was saying, I believe, is so what's the difference between, I mean, we show future parks, open space, no, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong line. Public facilities, town center, land acquisition is a priority 8 and a priority 11. So what's the difference between those two line items?
So those are to be further refined and defined, but they are largely dependent on your conversations around town center or other public facilities that could be in that area. So parking lot is one of those items that could be considered. A multi-use space facility is another one that could be within that. And it could be that you need additional land in order to be able to realize your full phased vision of town center. So we've broken it up across 8 and 11 to be able to sort of demonstrate those pockets.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So I believe our next person is Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson.
Thank you, Jeannie. I really like this presentation. This is a lot of detail, and it helps us really see where the money could be spent based on some of our discussions and the priorities. So I really do appreciate. I can't remember when we've had this much detail in one presentation, to be honest. So thank you for all the hard work and collaboration. With that said, I want to go back to what Councilmember Robati said about the Crabtree Nature Park. Do I recall that we did apply for a PARTIF grant for that park, and we might not have gotten it, but did we apply? Do you know?
My understanding is we are expecting a grant. I will defer to Assistant Town Manager Zudema to confirm.
Yeah, that's correct. We have been awarded a $500,000 PARTIF grant that could go towards that project.
Okay, great. And is there a time dependency on the spend for that?
There is. I can confirm this. I believe that our initial obligation is to spend that by I want to say the fall of 2023. We do have some capacity to request an extension. I cannot say that I think it would be a 3-year extension. I think it would have to be based on some specific factors that might have delayed the project.
Thank you for that. Is it possible that some of the monies could go towards design work and that would help get that project even more shovel ready, if you will, and suitable for debt instrument?
I would have to look at our PARTIF application again. I believe we applied towards construction monies. You have largely funded the design aspect of it. That is underway now. We're working through that project with CLH to do design on that park.
Okay. I appreciate that background because parks are very important to all of us, and I wouldn't want us to lose an opportunity for a grant because we prioritized it beyond its timeline that was approved. So That's important. Jeannie, the council is actually tasked with an exercise to prioritize this list, and with a formal survey, I think. And that's due tomorrow, and then we would see this, maybe another iteration of that. Is that true, or did I misunderstand?
So partly, so let me clarify. So the list here that we're using is really based off of input and conversations that we've heard council have over not just the shovel-ready project, but the other things that you thought were materially important to try to find a funding solution for. And so we carried that forward as best we could to be able to demonstrate you might have capacity to take on even more, depending on what you want to leverage. But we pulled these pieces out of your CIP prioritization and to try to separate the conversation a little bit. So your CIP prioritization is now focused on those unfunded considerations, those items that we haven't talked about, we haven't leveraged and invested dollars to create shovel-ready projects. So those are the other things on your CIP list. And we tried to do that on purpose so that you could see potentially what you can fund or how much you can fund and how much you could leverage and invest, and then move that conversation over. If there's something from that list, from the CIP prioritization discussion, once we get the results back, that is easy enough to move into the equation or to leverage your reserve dollars, i.e. parkland payment in lieu, your capital reserve fund, and other restricted sources, that also might become a part of your CIP big picture, not just bond referendum, but all debt financing and other sources to create that CIP plan.
Okay.
Long explanation, but hopefully that got to your.
No, this is all good. This is, just a matter of understanding how we can influence maybe this a little bit, refine it a little bit further, so that if we do have some grants that are available to us, that we, shift it in a way that it will be favorable to the town. Also, with the designs of certain projects, they do have a limited life before construction when they have to be reissued if we wait too long. So, there's a lot of variables in this list that I noticed. Transportation could be also something that may be a competitive kind of grant from Campo or other sources. So there's a lot of interesting aspects about this. My main concern was making sure that we didn't lose sight of our part of grant, and also knowing how much flexibility we might have within these buckets if we moved projects up or down, just keeping mind of the bottom line amounts that we were working through each of these scenarios, so that we would still stay within the guidelines and the policies that we were creating. So thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Other questions or comments? Mayor Colley, you have a question.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's question/observation. When I look at the 8 and 11 public facilities town center, if we were to have to foot the bill for a parking deck, for example, that was more than $2,500,000, more than $5 million is my recollection. So these numbers, although great for planning purposes and fit within our bond capacity, may be a little low, especially if we're thinking about having a town green in town center, and a community center wouldn't be covered by $5 million either. So I just want to put out there that this still doesn't get us all our visions, but this is a really great step. And as you noted, this is the first time we've really had this level of detail, and that's something that's very actionable, which is really important that we're taking this step. So I don't know if you want to react to that at all, Ms. Hooks, or not.
No, I appreciate your comments and your observations. I think, as you noted, you will see we were working towards what's the maximum that we knew you could afford based on your propensity to be comfortable with a 2 or 3 cent tax increment. So that was really the starting place. And then aligning into it those shovel-ready projects first, trying to fit in your high level of interest of land acquisition for open space and parks, and in doing that and accommodating really your installment financing for a public works facility that's been in the plans for a couple of years now, and then building in some capacity to meet other categories that you were interested in investing in and demonstrating that to the community. One thing I heard loud and clear from council is that you, in terms of financing categories, you wanted to make sure you were able to, and through a bond, show the public that you wanted to leverage the most dollars for parks and recreation. Second, you said to us that you wanted to leverage the next most amount of money that you could towards transportation, and then potentially public facilities that could encompass both public safety and or those multi-facilities that could fall within town center. So that's sort of what we heard and what we tried to take away and work with you on, and then bring you back a couple of case studies that sort of help demonstrate that, align to that. Now the question becomes, what is council comfortable with as we move forward and discuss this? Because Mitch and Ted both will probably tell you we could shuffle the deck here a little bit, but will you get the best results? Will you be able to fund what you need? It's going to take more than just financing to get what council's interested in accomplishing. And then the other is going to be that you can't fund everything in the CIP in the 5-year window. So it becomes a choice. So I would just sort of leave it at that. Any other? So we have we're going to round 2 comments. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Well, Councilmember Rao and Councilmember Garamella haven't gone.
Okay.
Councilmember Rao, go first.
Councilmember Rao or Councilmember Garamella, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I've been quiet, just listening. This is a lot of information. The council has asked great questions. I guess for me, it just becomes, we can't fund everything. So what scenario can we? I just want to get things done. I feel like, we've got, the opportunity to get some of these critical areas funded and accomplished. And so, MAFC is just a great example of that. It just feels so great to see these completed projects with the McCrimmon extension. And so I think transportation is key. Parks is really important. Open space is important. And the mayor brought up a good point about the town center. I mean, I think it's probably going to require more money. But I don't know, as we look at our priorities, do we, because we don't even have an RFP yet, do we hold off on that and, focus in on those critical things that we can get done? Or do we just go and try to maximize, under these scenarios to get as much done as we can, while at the same time worrying about, how much we can take on? So I don't know what guidance you need tonight. I mean, do you want us to think of these scenarios and then do the exercise? Is that the whole goal? Because there's so much information here. I'm trying to get my arms around different scenarios.
So let's hear from Councilmember Garamella, because we are actually at an hour's discussion right now. So let me make sure we get everyone fit in. Councilmember Garamella?
Thanks, Jeannie. My question is, we are all going with the assumption of 3% increase, right? I want to circle back because how much will that honeymoon period continue? Saying that because land is limited, development is becoming harder and harder, like in the morning, in just earlier sessions, I heard statements, we want to slow down development, but it is directly impacts the tax year bracket. I'm looking at, Martha presents along with you the budget. The budget is increasing of town, exponentially. So using the 3% factor, the 3 to 5% factor, and also looking at the growth, and pretty soon, like, what is the forecast, like 7 to 8 years? Are we still doing that? Will you guys have to adjust that to 1 to 2% because development is becoming harder, and there's not enough land unless the redevelopment and other stuff. So when we are looking at this, I kind of look at a bigger picture. Obviously we have good points like, census will help us with the population increase and other stuff, and hopefully the gas tax and the power bill tax and all those things will kind of help us. But like I'm looking at the overall forecasting point of view. Are we looking at that point of view? Because this like clearly shows like 7 to 8 years is the time for this, taking the scenarios 1, 2, 3, 7 to 8 years. Pretty much I look our budget, the 3% increase is almost getting sucked up with our cost of the town that we are doing. Could be projects, could be this one. How are we planning to forecast like beyond it? Or do we still think over the next 8 to 10 years we still have 3%?
So let me try to answer that, in the middle of a budget process. And one of the exercises I do is to always go through and do what's called an environmental scan. It's really to check in on some key indicators as Davenport's actually demonstrated here through their model. It's a very similar thing with long-range forecasting of our operations, and checking in on those indicators to see where things are going in the future. One of the most critical ones that we check in on is really what is in the pipeline at planning at the preliminary stages. So for our ad valorem, our largest revenue source, that probably spend the most amount of time on in studying and assessing. And what something Morrisville has strategically done is you've built a roadway through one of the largest vacant developable land areas that we have left. Now, it's not going to develop overnight. Morrisville has the ability over the next several years to be able to start tapping into that new development resource that allows you to grow your tax base. Now, new development alone is not the only way you grow your tax base. It's also through the value of the property itself as it is reassessed and adjusted to market conditions. And Morrisville is very, and has always been in the years that I've been here, very successful in its revaluation process because of our location. Our location is a driver of where people want to be, and it causes the value of our land to just increase and appreciate. One of the other things we also have to consider is yes, you make a very good point, is that we will have a build out at some point. Does that mean that our assessed value is going to stop growing? No, I don't believe that's the case. I think it will change, and I think it will change depending on how we adopt our land use plan that shows and indicates what future development could look like, or in this case, redevelopment could look like. For areas like the TOD would be a prime example. Town center is another example of how that's going to help us keep and maintain that engine of 3%, hopefully, of assessed value growth. So there's a bright picture on Morrisville's horizon. So when I sit down and talk to the credit rating agencies, that's the kind of story I would put in front of them as to what potential Morrisville has in the future in a long-term picture of really continuing that growth.
All right. Thanks, Jenny.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, I think it's round 2 for you.
No, that's okay, Jeannie. We are bumping up on an hour, so I'm good. But the question Satish just asked and the conversation or the discussion that you just shared with us, that is very important, because if we miss the mark on at least getting to a 3% growth rate, then this chart stays as is or becomes incredibly problematic, maybe. So I think that is important. I think growth is what's going to help get us out of these non-compliant years that we see on the chart. And I'm talking to the next chart. What is it? Slide 11, I guess.
Oh, this one right here.
Yeah. And I appreciate you always being so conservative. And using the 3%, even though we tend to fluctuate anywhere between 3 and 5%, but if we're not going to fulfill the land use plan eventually, and if we're not going to have projects come out of the ground, that will affect this chart, and it will affect our that 3% growth rate. So anyhow, it's good food for thought.
Correct. Other questions before I try to wrap this up? I always like to give Town Manager Page an opportunity to share any thoughts that she might have.
Thank you, Jean. I think most of it's covered. Is you do have, and I think your hard task in front of you is you have the ability to change those categories between parks and recreation and transportation and facilities, but not, once you've decided those, that's what we take to the voters. So that's where you really have to be sure how much you want to put in each of those buckets, because that's the ultimately irrevocable decision point that we're asking you to make. And then you're correct, it does move some things around, but you control some of that, and then we can respond to what you need. Jeannie mentioned it. We gave this our best stab based on your input, and yes, there are multiple scenarios. Then I'd just like to turn it back over to Jeannie. The time is now. And this is not a conversation we can have for multiple more meetings to meet our timeline. So we are going to challenge you to really deliberate over this before our work session, so that we can come to some final recommendations. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jeannie.
Okay. Mitch or Ted, one last pass for the both of you before I wrap things up for council and sort of lay some groundwork for them.
Nothing here. Thank you.
Yep. Appreciate the opportunity and happy to answer any other questions as they may arise.
Okay. I appreciate both of you and the time that you've given council, and working with you on this has been a joy. So let me just sort of lay this out for council. So Town Manager Page is correct. We are at that time. We have a bond referendum you're trying to achieve, and it's something that we delayed in 2020, and we have projects that we've been working on creating shovel-ready for a reason, to really start executing those projects. And we have talked about the fact that many of these shovel-ready projects are really bond-eligible type projects. It means they likely will fare well in a voter's giving us the authority to leverage this debt instrument. It's a debt instrument question. Now, that's not to say that people aren't going to look at the projects themselves and say, hey, I like these projects. And that's really the core of it. It is getting access to the debt instrument. What projects could we potentially align to that, so the voters feel confident that you, as elected body, is leveraging their incremental tax in the way that works towards giving them the things that they need in the community as best you can. And you have to struggle with balancing what that picture looks like. I think you have a great opportunity right now. In the years that I've been with Morrisville, again, this is a 5-year plus CIP plan, and that you can demonstrate to the voters a lot of things that you want to get accomplished. And I would just say that, and would probably want to repeat that. This is a great opportunity for you to demonstrate doing things for the community. If I were to go back and look at really the input that we received, even just through the recent portal, all of these projects really line up to those 5 core areas that folks are interested in. In some way, we can accomplish some things, whether the 2, of course, the 3-cent line's better, but it does line up to many of these things that they were looking for. So at the end of the day, I think what we're asking you to do, as what I'm hearing you is to say, is that you need a little more time. We have another work session on March 16th where I'll be talking about bond language. I'll be taking this a little step further and trying to decide or work with bond counsel tomorrow and trying to tweak some of that language after input you gave me at retreat and bring that back in front of you. But we can also talk about once you have been able to sort of sit on this, look at it, meditate, and really follow back up with you on this. But now is the time. You have opportunity and you have capacity to do great things in Morrisville. And Davenport has helped you sort of see some pathways forward to do that. So we'll talk again on March 16th. I would just ask you to look over this model and the projects that they sort of throw out there and be ready to talk about it and hopefully give staff some good guidance to move things forward for your bond referendum as well as your installment financing. So with that, I will close, Mayor, and hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I did have one last question. You put facilities as one bucket, and that includes the public safety and the others, and that's some of the wording that you're going to be working with our bond counsel on?
Yes, sir.
I knew you were going to work on that. Okay.
Yes,
so
sir. I'm going to try
that we're looking at those 3 buckets.
Right now, that's what I'm going to try to work with them. Of course, they're going to be the experts and will be able to tell us if that's possible or not and bring suggestions back for you.
Okay.
But that's my objective right now.
Okay. So on behalf of the council, thank you very much to you, Mitch, everybody, and Ted on the team for bringing us this far. It's very important and a big step. So we look forward to finishing that survey that was been sent to us by tomorrow. So you'll have what you need to help us prep for next week. Thank you very much, Ms. Hooks.
Thank you.
Okay, that is our last item for this evening. So thank you all for watching this meeting of the Morrisville Town Council. We hope you plan to join us again. Please feel free to email your town council members at towncouncil@townofmorrisville.org or visit www.townofmorrisville.org/council for additional contact information. I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll recognize Councilmember Rabati, please.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Okay. I have a motion. If we do it quick, we're done by 9. I recognize Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Town Clerk Smith, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Scroggins Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Robati.
Aye.
Councilmember Rao.
Aye.
Councilmember Garamella.
Aye.
Councilmember Fender.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Cawley.
Aye.
The motion to adjourn passes unanimously.
Thank you all. It is 9 p.m. We are adjourned.
Good night, everybody.